Hi Scorpios, and welcome to your April 2019 Tarology 33 reading. We have a Celtic crossbar in front of us as always, and then we have some Oracle cards to get through after that, and then a Mudra card as well, so quite a bit to get to. We'll get started with the main spread, going through one by one. In the main situation position, we have the Six of Swords. So, this could represent you leaving something behind. Now, as for what that something may be, we do have the Ten of Pentacles as your challenge card, so it could definitely be something tied to finances. It could just be moving away from something or someone that you're very familiar with and have built a long-standing relationship with. So, it doesn't have to be romantic, but I mean, that's a possibility, yes, but it could be family, maybe you're moving away from family, maybe just long-term friendships that you've had. And this doesn't necessarily have to be moving away permanently either. For some of you, this could represent just travel. Right now, the North Node is in your 9th house. So for some of you, that could represent even studying abroad. Maybe you get an opportunity to study abroad, and some of you are taking that opportunity, right? But maybe you're having a bit of difficulty deciding to make that move because, you're just very comfortable and familiar with where you're at right now. So maybe that's a bit of a, maybe that's why the Ten of Pentacles is coming up in the challenge position. And another way this could even play out is to say that, some of you just may want to make a big move, but maybe finances are the challenge, right? Since this isn't a challenge position. So, maybe some of you guys want to make some kind of a move, but finances are hindering you from doing so right now. Trying to think if anything else comes to mind with that. Well, there's definitely a lot of pentacle energy going on here, both in the past and in the near future. So, basically, I'm recording this right as the sun entered Aries. It's the 21st of March when I'm recording this. So, that would shift the focus to your 6th house, which is your day-to-day routines, your work life to an extent, health as well. So, you could just be doing a lot of focus and reevaluating in that area. And then in your 2nd house, we have Jupiter, which could help expand your finances actually, but it's going to go retrograde later in the month of April, and it's actually made a couple of tough aspects recently with Neptune a little while back, and now during the Mercury retrograde, Mercury was squaring Jupiter as well, so that could have caused some confusion in that area of life for you guys as well with finances. And but now you're actually going to have Mars in your 8th house, which usually represents other people's money, whether it's loans. So like, let's say you need a student loan of some kind to make a move, then that could help you out in that regard. Maybe a tax refund, right? It could just be as simple as this is just a vacation you want to take, but money's held up right now, so maybe you'll get that tax refund. That might help you pay for it. These are just some basic ways that it could play out, but usually this represents moving away from something, usually for your own mental sanity, basically, for lack of a better way of saying it. But again, with this coming up in the challenge position, it could be the other way around as far as, it could be difficult for you to make this move because you really have firm roots in the area that you would be leaving behind, basically, for lack of a better way of saying it. All right, in the foundation position, well, actually, since this, before I move on to that, this just came to mind too, since we are talking about the fact that your focus might be on work, for example. Maybe you're either moving away from a job because you feel that they aren't paying you enough, right? Or conversely, maybe there's a job that is stressing you out, right? Like these people here, they don't necessarily look like they're enjoying that boat ride, but so it could be that this is a job that really stresses you out, but maybe your difficulty in leaving it behind is because the money's really good, right? So like, okay, yeah, Like, I don't know, it's a toss up, right? You're like, all right, yes, this is stressing me out mentally, but the pay is really good, so maybe that's the trade off you're trying to deal with there. Or, like I said, it could be the other way around. It could be that they're just not paying you enough. And you're like, okay, yes, I've been at this job for a long time, maybe even like the people that you work with, right? So you fostered good connections with them, but you're like, you know what, I just need more in the area of finances and I need to move on. Either way, like I said, with some sixth house and eighth house energy you guys have going on right now, it wouldn't surprise me if that's what you're looking at. All right. In the foundation position, you have the Three of Pentacles, the Page of Pentacles, and the Five of Swords. So, let's just break these down one by one, right? So the first one was the Three of Pentacles. So for me, this usually represents, this is a Capricorn card for starters, and it represents the middle 10 degrees of Capricorn. And that's basically where Saturn is right now. And I actually view this as a Saturn card, but blended with Venus energy. So what do I mean by that, right? In a practical way. So Saturn tends to be associated with stability, something that will last a long time, but usually you have to work for it, right? And then that Venus energy comes along to lend to it something that you would enjoy doing and actually, that you'd be very pleased with the end result of. So, with those two energies combining in that way, it's like Saturn is already lending you that stability, that firm foundation. And then, Venus comes along to make it something that you'd actually enjoy. So, and keep in mind it is just the Three of Pentacles, right? So, this could represent maybe you're leaving, again, going with that possibility of, like I said, maybe some of you are leaving a job behind that, yes, it financially fulfilled you, but not much beyond that, right? So now maybe it's like, okay, well, I'm going to start over with this new career path, and it's something that I'll enjoy, right? And it can, it has that potential to last a long time, but I'm just starting off at a lower ranking than I was at my other job, right? And that Page of Pentacles energy, if we look at the way I always describe the pages is to me, it represents the 1 foot in, 1 foot out energy, as opposed to the king and the queen or even the knight, right? That just seem a lot more sure footed. Even in their stances, you can kind of see that they're a little uncomfortable. And then if we look closely at his hands in relation to the pentacle, it's like just out of his reach, right? So that could be what this is saying there, that you're on that path to building something stable, right? So maybe you are restarting and resetting in some way, shape, or form. And it's like, okay, you know that this has long-term potential and it's something you'll be really happy with. But for the time being, you feel like the money is just out of your reach, right? Because it feels like maybe you took a step back financially in order to get something that you'd be happy with. Now, with the Five of Swords thrown in the mix, what's interesting there is, to me, this could represent some kind of deceit as well. So let's look at this a few different ways. So, I mean, these two cards tend to go a little bit better together with the story than the Five of Swords, right? So let's look at what this could possibly represent. For some of you, this could be a job that you're going for, right? And you're like, okay, I know this would be, something that would make me happy, right? And maybe, maybe you thought you were going to be offered the job, but it still seems just out of your reach. Just make sure that there isn't some kind of deception going on behind the scenes there. Whether it be that they're promising you something more than what it really is, right? Maybe they're trying to make it sound a lot better than what it would actually be. That could be one way that these two cards will be working together, what the Page and the Five of Swords is saying there. And then another way could be, even like, let's say that this is a job that you've been in for a long time, right? And you express your desire. Maybe you ask them for more money and they said, oh, we can't do it for you, right? And so you're like, well, I'm going to apply to different places, okay? And then maybe you put your current boss, as a reference, right? And they might give you a bit of a shady review to the prospective new employers, just with the hopes of keeping you on board. So that's something to look out for there. Um, And this could just represent maybe whatever field you're getting into. Like, let's say it is a study abroad program, right? Maybe there's only very few people that could get that spot. You really want it, right? But just make sure that other people in your environment aren't doing something underhanded. Just keep an eye out for it. Because at the same time, while it is possible, especially like there's been some crazy energies going on in Pisces, and they're not necessarily going to be done yet in April. But that could also have you seeing things a bit unclear as well. So just something to keep in mind there. But looks like something's getting in the way of the stability that you're looking for. And this is usually, to me, this usually represents ego conflicts as well. And I think you guys might have gotten this card a couple of times in the past, but I always say it's like one of those things where you go into it knowing that nothing good is going to come of it, but you still do it anyway. So this could even be confrontation in the workplace too. So maybe it's like it's one of those jobs that seemed ideal, but then you realize compared to where you used to be, where you got along well with everyone, maybe because you're the new person, right? Maybe they're being a bit douchey to you, so maybe you have to deal with that, right? And while you're getting accustomed to the new work environment, that could be what it is too. All right, in the past position, we have the Six of Pentacles. So usually to me this represents balance. This could be in the context of what we've already been talking about. Maybe this is some back pay that was owed to you, like let's say you did leave a job behind. Usually you might have some vacation time left over or whatever, and then usually since that's technically considered time you earned, after you leave the job, they'll give that to you in the form of a paycheck, right? Or this could go back to your taxes, like I was saying. For some of you, you could even be doing, maybe what you're trying to do is maybe you're actually doing some kind of charity work, right? Maybe that's the opportunity that you've decided to take. Maybe sometimes even companies offer that. They're like, oh, if you want to do charity work, blah, 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 they'll, basically consider it as like a paid time off for you for the time that you're gone, right? So maybe that's even something that some of you tried to do. Just you might have felt like you needed just a break from your job, right? You're like, okay, I don't want to leave, but I need a change of pace to switch things up a bit. So maybe that's what some of you have decided to do. But this could just be pointing out the fact that maybe this is how it made you feel, your current job, right? Like maybe you felt like you were just getting handouts, like it was just barely enough to get by, right? This isn't what you felt like. You were in the position of these people, so you're like, I can't keep doing this, right? Like this just isn't going to cut it. So that's one way it could play out, given the context of the other cards as well. Trying to think if anything else comes to mind. Well, this represents the middle 10 degrees of Taurus as well. So when Mars was passing through those degrees, which I believe might have been early in March or maybe even late February. No, it was early March. So maybe even early March, this is when you were in this dynamic and maybe you realized, I can't do this anymore, right? Because, especially for those of you who have your Scorpio placement within 10 to 20 degrees, Mars would have been opposing that. So that really could have been that spark you needed to take action and say, okay, I can't, stay in this dynamic anymore. Because while it usually does mean balance, if we're taking in the rest of these cards into context, I get more of that feeling that it's pointing to, you feel like you're not where you need to be, and you felt like, they were barely giving you enough to get by at your job. All right, in the present position, we have the Ten of Swords. So that's one of those things where you say that escalated quickly, right? You had the Six of Swords there, now we're at the Ten of Swords. Someone else actually, I think Cancers had just gotten this card as well, and what I was saying to them, and I usually try to point this out with the Ten of Swords, but a lot of the cards, the regular cards in the Rider-Waite, were actually inspired by a deck called the Songabuska deck. And in that deck, the Ten of Swords is actually a lot more like the Ten of Wands, in that the swords aren't actually in the person's back. they're actually the person's actually carrying the 10 swords. So to me, it represents more like it's a mental burden, you know. And for some of you, this could point to an ending of that mental burden. But you know, let's say that if we view it more that way, right, more like it's the 10 of swords, this could just be you feeling weighed down with these options, right? Like you're like, okay, I could leave this job behind, but I've been there for a long time. I'm familiar with everyone. I know the process. You know, do I stick with that, or do I go with something that I know will be more fulfilling? But at least in the very beginning, especially, I'm going to feel like it's almost taking a step backwards, right, financially, where it's like, can I afford to make that kind of a adjustment? Right? For others of you, if it's the other way around where you're like, all right, you know, you're not being paid enough and you just can't do it anymore. You told them what you needed and they still aren't offering you what you would need to stay. You're leaving it behind. This could just be saying you're putting that mental burden behind you. Like, okay, you know what? I thought it over for as long as I could. I need to move on, right? So maybe that's what that points to there. Now, yes, given that we do have the 5 of swords in the foundation position as well, this could point to quote unquote a backstabbing dynamic as well. Um, and I mean, we have the 5 of wands at the bottom of the deck too. So that's another card that points to competitiveness, but I don't know. I'm not necessarily getting the vibe that you're actually being stabbed in the back, and we'll get to why I say that. Even though we see the 7 of swords there, we'll get to why I say that when we get a little bit further into the reading. But yes, for some of you, we have to at least put that possibility out there. All right. Now, in the near future, we're going to be here for a while because you guys got a lot of cards that came out in this spot. So let's see if we can make sense of them, right? We have the Ace of Pentacles, the 4 of Pentacles, the 3 of Wands, the 2 of Swords, and the Lovers. So, alright, let's get started. So, with the Ace of Pentacles, usually what I say to people with the aces, if you look at it, no matter what element it is, you know, if it's swords, if it's pentacles, cups, wands, the one thing they have in common is there's always what looks like almost like a cloud, right? With a hand coming out from the cloud holding whatever that element is. So here we have the pentacle. To me, what that represents is it's not tangibly in anyone's possession yet. It's just more of an idea at this point, right? So there's a new idea for finances. And so let's say that you have a job offer, right? And maybe that's what it is. You're like, okay, I can leave this job behind. But at this point, it would just be, you know, maybe at an offer stage. So yes, maybe it firmly will be your position, but they might tell you, oh, it doesn't start until June, right? So like, well, great, you know, I have to figure out what I would do in the meantime, right? So maybe you get the offer with the 4 of Pentacles mixed in with that. You know, sometimes this is referred to as the Miser card. I view this more as like a Saturn and Mercury energy. So it's, to me, that's more like just really taking a serious look at finances and deciding, you know, okay, how am I going to invest these pentacles, right? What am I going to do with them? Where is my next move? Do I want to hold on to them? Do I want to invest them in something? You know, and this doesn't always have to be money. It could just be time and resources as well. But, you know, we think money first with the pentacles. So this could just be you thinking about how to invest your time and resources. So if it's that scenario that we're mentioning where, you know, maybe you get a job offer, but, you know, just might not start for a while, you might be like, okay, well, now I have to pinch pennies for a bit to get me by until that new job would kick off, right? So that could be what you're doing. Like, okay, well, how can I stretch what I have to get me by until that time? Now, another way this could be playing out too is just saying that you're still waiting on that offer, because we have the 3 of Wands here. which is, often referred to as the waiting for your ships to come in card. Now, I will say, like I said, I'm recording this right as the sun's entering Aries, and this represents the middle 10 degrees of Aries. So even though this is in the near future, and if you're watching this on April 1st, you wouldn't think of April 1st as the near future, right? You'd think that as the present. This could just be pointing to when the sun goes into those degrees, which would be, again, like right towards the beginning of April. That could be when you receive some kind of news, right? And then maybe that has you like, okay, well, now it's really decision time, right? Like, okay, now I really have to figure out, am I going to make this move? Am I not going to make this move? And this is a Libra card. And, at the time I'm recording this, that full moon in Libra is going on right at the very beginning of the sign of Libra. But there's actually going to be a second one as well towards the end of Aries season, I think around the 17th, 18th or so. So that's two opportunities for you to possibly feel that Libra energy, which is your 12th house too. And then with the lovers often represents choices. Obviously, it can represent a new love relationship for some of you. This could represent a Gemini in your life as well. Usually it feels faded, if we look at the angel figure in the background, right? So usually it feels like a faded connection, so you might feel very pulled or drawn to this connection, whatever it may be, in whatever area. And again, this could just be pointing to a decision that you need to make. Do I stay with the old and familiar, or do I go with the new that's a bit more risky, but probably more fulfilling in the long run too, right? So, I mean, that's really what I'm seeing. I mean, it's, like I said, 5 cards, 1 position is a bit intense, but that's the story that I'm getting with that there. And quite honestly, if we go back and forth and try to look for more, I'd probably get a little dizzy, and you guys might too. So I think we'll leave it at that for now. But if anything else comes up as we go along, I'll go back to that. Well, actually, one thing did just come to mind before we do move on, and that would be the Lover's card. I almost, usually I like to think, okay, well, what is Gemini ruled by? And that's Mercury, right? So what's Mercury doing? Well, Mercury's currently in your 5th house. It's been retrograde. It's, by the time April starts, the retrograde will be done, but it's still going to, it's going to be conjunct Neptune, which could cause a little confusion, and then it's going to square Jupiter as well, the second week of April. So it could be pointing to that. But you also have the fact that Mars will be in Gemini all of April, and that's your 8th house. So maybe, especially with the Ace of Pentacles, 8th house can represent other people's money sometimes, so maybe that's really what it is. Whether you're waiting on a loan of some kind, or your tax money, or just a job offer outright, this could say that Mars energy coming into your 8th house is what really gets that spark going. So something to keep in mind there. All right. Sorry for the remix right there, but it just popped in my head. I wanted to get it out before I forgot. All right. And your influence in the situation, we have the 9 of Swords and the 8 of Wands. 9 of Swords, another not so fun sword card to have. I mean, you guys pretty much have, aside from the 3 of Swords, you have the toughest ones. You have the 10, the 7, the 9, the 5 underneath there. So this could just represent a lot of confusion on a mental level for you right now. Like we said, the 2 full moons taking place in your 12th house, that could certainly have a factor on that. The Mercury retrograde in another water sign, that could have an impact on it as well. You just went through a month and a half of having Mars in your opposite sign, which can sometimes make it feel like other people have the power in situations. So yes, romantic relationships is what people typically jump to with 7th house. And that could be partnerships of any kind. So that could also rub off in the area of your career too. So you might have felt like you didn't have any negotiating power in some way, shape, or form. And maybe that's what some of the difficulty was, right? But as that moves on, you might feel that shift as well. But yeah, 9 of Swords, really, for the most part, this represents just anxiety, really, just worrying about the worst, expecting the worst to come. And with the Eight of Wands, this could just represent maybe you just get bombarded with choices. Maybe you apply to multiple places, and now with the Mercury retrograde, you felt like nothing was going to come out, right? You're like, okay, I'm not hearing anything back. And then all of a sudden, the retrograde energy starts to clear. Now you get everyone coming at you at once. You're like, great, I don't know what the hell to do, right? That could be what's going on there. Now, especially with the Eight of Wands in the upright, I feel like you're just going to have a lot of options. But I do have to at least put it out there for some of you with the Nine of Swords. It could be that you're worrying that you're not going to have those options. Maybe you're like, okay, I put all of this work in, right? Maybe these Eight Wands represent actions you took. And you're like, I'm not hearing anything back. What's going on? So maybe you're getting really worried in that regard. Now, in the position of the environment's influence on a situation, we have the Magician. So, this is in the upright, so that's a good sign. But, I do at least put out the possibility there that when it is in the upright or reverse, you do have to at least put out the possibility that the Magician, right? We think about the stereotypical definition of what a magician is, right? Showing you one thing while they're doing another. With them pointing down to the Nine of Swords and Eight of Wands and the Seven of Swords, this could represent deception. So that would lead me to say, with that in the environment, that potential in the environment, keep in mind what I was saying about the Five of Swords, right? Maybe it's someone who also wants the same job that you were going for, right? And maybe they say to you, oh yeah, no, I heard they gave it to so-and-so. So maybe you were telling them, yeah, I think we're going to follow up with this place and see, hey, did they get my application or not? I haven't heard anything, good or bad. Maybe I need to reach out to them again. And they might say, oh yeah, I heard so-and-so got the job. Or, oh, I heard that job's off the market now, right? Don't necessarily trust that. That's just to be safe. Now, I don't mean to freak you guys out, but I just wanted to get the quote unquote worst case scenario out of the way first. Now, again, going back to the fact that it's in the upright, what's more likely is that this is saying that you really have the ability to manifest right now. Because, this can represent someone else bringing opportunities to you, absolutely. But keep in mind, this position represents the influence in the environment. So, yes, sometimes it is a person. Usually, if it is a person, especially major arcana, it's someone who's actually meant to help you along in some way. But this could also just represent the energies at play and what they're giving you the ability to do. And like I said, you're still going to have that fifth house energy. And now, this time around, with the retrograde clearing up, Mercury going through your fifth house is going to be a little bit better. That's a house of creativity as well. And then Venus will be going through those same degrees as well. So if that could help clear up any confusion that might have been going on at the time as well. Perfect combination there. So maybe that's saying that that's going to help you manifest. Combine that with Mars in the eighth house, and you guys are the natural rulers of the eighth house too. That could really help you in that regard as well. So I also view this as my South Node card, though. So keep in mind, the South Node right now is in your third house. So this could be pointing to you needing to communicate. So if there's something you need to communicate to someone, and that's what these Eight of Wands is about, and you're just really worried about it, whatever the case may be. Like I said, relationships, family connections, friendships, job, whatever the case may be, and you're just really worried about reaching out and communicating, it looks like it's in your best interest to do so. Now, in the hopes or fears position, we have the Seven of Swords. Everyone pretty much has a general idea of what this card is about, right? It usually points to deception in the upright. And what I would say, this is just in the hopes or fears position. So I'm going to assume you're fearing that this is what's happening, right? That you're being deceived in some way. Now, is it a possibility? Absolutely. So let's say you get to the point, right? You get the job offer, and you feel like the salary that they're offering you is lower than it should be, right? Just something seems off. Where, the example I give sometimes, just to keep it in aligned with the number of swords. Like, let's say they offer you 50,000, right? Each of those swords represent 10,000. Like, oh yeah, we'll offer you 50,000 for the job, but realistically they could do better than that. And that, let's say that the market rate for the type of job is 70,000, and you're like, okay, right? So if that's the case, try to not jump at the first offer they give you, to see if they'll do better than that, basically. But again, like I said, this is just in the position of a fear, so it's not necessarily something that's going to play out, but it's just something that's on your mind, and that, does seem to make sense. You have the Nine of Swords there. But like I said, I did allow for the opportunity that, yes, there could be some deception, so keep that in mind, but you guys are intuitive and very, let's just say you're good detectives, so feel something out, and something doesn't seem right, then don't hesitate to leave it behind. But this could just be a worry that you have that's unfounded, and maybe those energies moving through your fifth house will help clear that up for you. All right, in the outcome position, we have the Hermit card. So this represents the major arcana card for Virgo, and Virgo is your 11th house. Now, there's not really anything going on there right now that comes to mind as far as transits go. But again, this is another Mercury ruled sign, so it could again be pointing to the Mercury issues. And, with it moving forward in April, it could just represent that you'll get that second chance to look everything over again. Like I said, it's going to pass over the same degrees it did when it was retrograde, but this time moving forward, you might see things a little bit more clearly than you did the first time around, right? So, if we think of that lantern there, it's like holding up a light, right? Like really looking over the fine details of everything. Like, okay, did I miss something? What? This sounded one way before, but should I look into this again and see what really was going on? Things along those lines could just represent you just being exhausted too. I mean, looks like it's, at the very least, it looks like it's a very active month. I mean, you have the Five of Wands at the bottom. We mentioned the Five of Swords. All this craziness going on in the near future. You might just be like, all right, I need a little time to unwind at the end of the month. That could be all that's really pointing to. But this is a good card to have because, that Hermit energy represents wisdom and, solitude, yes, but usually it's by choice when it's in the upright, and you'd really just be looking over things, and really before you make any big moves, maybe you're just like, let me really think this over and do this right. Like I said, retrograde energy clearing up, good time to do that. So you're right on track if that's where you're at mentally. All right, let's look at these oracle cards. First one you got was from the Wisdom of the Oracle deck, and it actually came up in reverse, and it was Loyal Heart. So I know what you guys are probably thinking with that, right? With it in reverse. So I just put in the upright so you guys could see it, but there's the artwork for you. You got two owls and heart symbol there. The number is 35. And when it comes up in reverse, there's a separate message from the usual messages. It's called the protection message. So we'll read that and see what it says. Might look bad on the surface to think it came out in reverse, but we'll see. Alright, it says, are you stubborn or overly tenacious about an idea? Or have you become so attached to something that you just don't know how to let it go? Could it be that it's become so much a part of you that you wouldn't know who you are without it? Now is the time to look at outdated beliefs, old ideas, and misplaced loyalties. Betrayal is only a signal that it is time to prune away all who don't deserve your trust and have no place in your life. Be new, think new, and open your heart to new things. Let go of the old and all your attachments. Spirit has awesome plans for you. Make some room. Now, I know I know how some of that's going to sound to you guys as Scorpios and fixed signs, let go of this and that. It might sound easier said than done, but that's what the message is. And, yeah, like I said, if you do actually, I would say rather than just assuming that, yes, there's definitely deception at play, really try to feel it out and really look at things. And maybe that's what that hermit energy is. You're like really assessing, like, okay, is something off here? And, if so, it looks like it's saying, and like I said, even if it's just beliefs that you've held on for a long time that may be getting in your way, maybe that's what those two full moons in your 12th house is going to help bring to the surface too. Maybe some ways that you may have been holding yourself back in some way, shape, or form. Now, next we'll go to the Spirit Animal Oracle deck. You guys got two cards there. The Spirit Animal Oracle deck seems to love you guys because I think you got like three last month or the month before. But you got Scarab Beetle Spirit. It says magic works through you. There's the artwork for it, and the number is 52. So we'll take a look at that next. All right, it says in ancient Egypt, the scarab beetle was revered for the creative magic of scarab beetle spirit reminds us that we can bring forth something extraordinary seemingly out of thin air. Whenever you let your creativity flow through you, scarab beetle spirit reminds you that spirit has given you the gift of infinite potential. You have an ally as you fashion something new or repurpose the old, for spirit co-creates with you, channeling energy through you so that you feel replenished and vitalized as you make magic with what is at hand. Now is a time for great optimism, for you can accomplish anything you desire, and your creative endeavors will come to fruition. Miracles, opportunities, abundance, and love will appear seemingly out of nowhere as you allow spirit to work through you and magically manifest what you need. So yeah, see, I mean, while I wasn't too sure if this represented someone else in your life or just the energies at play giving you this ability, that that message definitely seems to point to it being you that has this ability right now, that magician energy to manifest something if you want to. And when it mentioned creativity, that's mainly tied to fifth house. And like I said, not only are you going to have that Mercury energy clear up, so maybe even had an idea for something, but you couldn't figure out how to quite turn it into something tangible. Mercury moving back forward again, and then Venus basically moving right behind it, about a week behind it, and moving over those same degrees. Maybe that'll help something really pop for you in your head that you can move forward with. All right, and then the next one you got was Hawk Spirit. It says, let spirit be your guide. There's the artwork for it, and the number there is 32. So let's take a look at this. Alright, Oracle message says, flying high above the landscape, the hawk sees both the big picture and the small details, observes the rain and the pond as well as the cloud, and doesn't miss anything. When hawk spirit arrives, you are called to pay close attention to messages from spirit that can appear anywhere in any form. Listen to your intuition and keep your eyes open for synchronicities, the meaningful coincidences. Hawk Spirit asks you not to dismiss the signs that Spirit is sending to guide you. Lately, have you been hearing the same word or song, or coming across the same symbol here, there, and in the strangest places? Perhaps you hear a song on the radio with just the right lyric pertaining to your query, or you begin to notice uncanny billboards, license plates, or other places where repetitive numbers or words show up for you to notice. Pay attention to the animals that appear for you and connect with their symbolism. Spirit wants to communicate and reaches out again and again. When Hawk Spirit appears, it is a sign to listen. So that's a pretty cool card there as well. I mean, it goes well not only with the magician stuff, but what we were saying with the Hermit energy too, which is to really look at things with a fine detail. And like I was saying, maybe things you might have missed with Mercury in retrograde now with it going back forward and then Venus passing along right behind it. Maybe that's really going to help you see some things that you hadn't seen clearly before. All right. And the last thing that we have is a Mudra card. So, for those of you who don't know, basically what I've been doing is every month I've been pulling a mudra card for each of the signs. And what mudras are is they're basically hand gestures that you would hold for usually at least 5 minutes while meditating. For those of you who are more accustomed to meditating, you could go a half hour, 45 minutes, depending, maybe even longer for some. But yeah, this is the actual gesture. It's a bit of a complex one. But this is the Kilaka Mudra, and the keyword for that is union there. And I'll turn it around so you guys can either pause it or take a screenshot to read what it has to say. Alright, now, it's not going to have everything in the shot, so what I'll do is I'll move it up so you could see the rest. And then, take another screenshot or pause it again, whatever. But as you can see, it says, tonifies the water element in the body, improves the function of the kidneys, bladder, and sexual glands, fosters a sense of emotional safety and comfort around intimacy and sexuality, can also be used as a devotional gesture to express or evoke the union of masculine, Shiva, and feminine, Shakti. So, interesting one there. And you know what actually stands out to me as I was reading that? There's no cup cards here. Well, actually, was there one in this pile of 8 million cards? Let me see. Because I'm like, you guys are the cup element, so that's interesting. Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, there's not like one true cup card here, I mean, so maybe that's a sign in of itself too, that if you're feeling out of sorts, maybe you could try this to get back in alignment. So I'll put the name of that in the description as well if you guys wanted to look into it a bit more. I'm sure there's videos on YouTube or at least, a Google search. There'll be articles about it. If you guys want a personal reading with me, you could check out the About section as well, where I'll give you a little bit more info on how you could do that. And you can check me out on Instagram, where we have a little bit more fun with astrology and tarot there. But if not, I'll see you guys next month. All right, bye.